The notification appeared on my phone screen as I was sorting through insurance claims at my desk. Your card ending in 4721 has been charged $127.83 at Giuseppe's Fine Italian. I stared at the amount, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Giuseppe's was the kind of place where they brought your water in actual glass bottles and the appetizers cost more than most people's lunch. I hadn't ordered anything from Giuseppe's. The drive home felt longer than usual, each red light giving me more time to imagine what I'd find. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that maybe my card had been compromised, that some stranger across town was enjoying expensive pasta instead of my family celebrating another small cruelty at my expense. But I knew better. The smell hit me as soon as I opened the front door, garlic, herbs, and something rich that made my empty stomach clench. They were spread across the living room like royalty holding court, white takeout containers scattered across the coffee table, Mom delicately twirling linguine around her fork while Dad attacked what looked like veal parmesan. Finally decided to show up, Dad said without looking away from the television. Your mother was worried you'd gotten into an accident, but I told her you were probably just taking your sweet time as usual. Traffic was light tonight, I said, setting my purse down carefully. How was everyone's day? Terrible, Mom sighed dramatically. Mrs. Smith's dog got loose again and ran through my flower bed. I spent hours trying to salvage what I could, but my back is just killing me now. My brother looked up from his plate long enough to smirk. Maybe if you actually helped around here instead of playing pretend writer all day, Mom wouldn't have to do all the yard work herself. I was at my actual job, I said evenly. The one that pays for this house. Oh please. Neil waved his fork dismissively. Filing papers 8 hours a day isn't exactly brain surgery. At least Mom's doing real work, keeping this place nice for all of us. I watched him take another bite of what looked like chicken marsala, probably $3 worth of food disappearing into his ungrateful mouth with each bite. Speaking of which, I said, I got a notification about Giuseppe's. Did someone order dinner? We thought we'd treat ourselves, Mom said, not meeting my eyes. It's been such a stressful week. With my credit card. Well, yes, but. Where's mine? The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Dad finally cleared his throat. We didn't think you'd want any. You're always complaining about your weight, and you never appreciate good food anyway. That's not why, Neil said, leaning back with the satisfied air of someone about to deliver a punchline. We figured you didn't deserve it. This isn't real money you're spending, it's just credit card debt. When you start working hard for your money like the rest of us, maybe then you can have nice things. The words hit me like ice water. I stood there, looking at my family, my father who hadn't worked in 3 years since his early retirement, my mother who spent her days rearranging furniture and complaining about neighbors, my 32-year-old brother who wasn't currently employed and who hadn't held a job for longer than 6 months in his entire adult life, and something inside me simply stopped. Not broke. Just stop. You know what? I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You can have the house. Neil snorted. What's that supposed to mean? I mean, I'll sign it over to you. All of you. It's paid off, not with any help from any of you, but you're right, you deserve nice things. You deserve this house. You can have it. The fork slipped from Mom's hand, clattering against her plate. Angie, don't be ridiculous. You're upset, but. I'm not upset, I said, and realized it was true. I'm done. Dad was staring at me now, something like concern flickering across his face. You can't just give away a house, Angie. Don't be dramatic. Watch me. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and Old Spice. Mr. Peterson had handled the original purchase 5 years ago, back when I'd finally saved enough to buy the small house outright after years of working 2 jobs and submitting stories everywhere for pennies and sometimes dollars. Are you certain about this, Ms. James? He peered at me over his reading glasses. This is a significant asset you're transferring. Once the paperwork is filed. I'm certain. He slid the documents across his mahogany desk. You'll want to review these carefully. The quitclaim deed transfers your entire interest in the property too. He checked his notes. Margaret James, Robert James, and Neil James, in equal shares. I signed my name with steady hands. They'll be responsible for property taxes, utilities, maintenance, and all associated costs going forward, Mr. Peterson continued. You understand that once this is filed, you'll have no legal or financial claim to the property? Perfect. I capped my pen. How long before this is official? I can file today. Should be processed within the week. Walking out of that office felt like emerging from underwater. The sun seemed brighter, the air cleaner. I sat in my car for a long moment, not quite believing what I'd done. My phone buzzed with a text from my agent, final payment processed. Congratulations again on the trilogy deal. I laughed, actually laughed. The timing was perfect in a way that felt almost orchestrated by the universe itself. The condo was everything the house wasn't: bright, efficient, all mine. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with natural light, and I could hear the gentle hum of creative people living their lives, a pianist practicing scales in 3B, and from my living room window, I could see a painter on the balcony across the courtyard, her easel catching the afternoon sun as she worked on what looked like a vibrant landscape. I'd found the place online the morning after the Giuseppe's incident, toured it that afternoon, and put in an offer that same evening. The purchase had taken a month to close, but I'd moved in the day I got the keys. The down payment and buying costs had used a good portion of my advance, but owning it outright meant my monthly expenses were just the association fee and utilities. Moving was surprisingly easy when you'd never been allowed to accumulate and keep much, in your own house, in the first place. One suitcase of clothes, a box of manuscripts, my laptop, and the small cedar chest my grandmother had left me, the only thing in that house that had ever truly belonged to me alone. My family hadn't tried to stop me. Even as I'd loaded my car, they'd maintained their air of amused superiority, convinced I'd come crawling back within days. You'll see how good you had it with us here taking care of things, Mom had called from the porch. The real world isn't as easy as you think. I'd waved goodbye and driven away without looking back. The first call came on a Tuesday, exactly 6 weeks after I'd moved out. I was at my new desk, an actual writing desk position to catch the morning light, working on edits for book 2 when my phone rang. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. Angie, honey, there seems to be some confusion with the utility company. They're saying the electric bill is overdue, but that can't be right because you've always handled that. Could you call them and sort this out? Also, the property tax notice came and the amount seems wrong. Thanks, sweetie. The second call came Thursday evening. Angie, this is getting ridiculous. The electric company is being very rude, and they're threatening to shut off service. You know Dad needs his oxygen machine at night. And someone from the county called about property taxes, but we don't understand what they're talking about. Just call them back and tell them to speak to you like they always have. By Sunday, the tone had shifted. Where are you? We've been by that awful apartment complex, but no one answers. The water heater is making strange noises, and there's a leak in the bathroom ceiling. The property tax bill is almost $2,000, and you know we don't have that kind of money. This joke has gone on long enough. Come home. I saved each voicemail without listening to completion, then returned to my manuscript. My protagonist was learning to trust her instincts, to stop second-guessing every decision. The parallels weren't lost on me. 1.5 SEC. Neil got a job at a hardware store. I found out through a mutual acquaintance who thought I'd be proud of him for finally stepping up. The phrase sat uneasily with me, as if his 15-plus years of unemployment since finishing high school had been some kind of extended adolescence rather than a choice enabled by my willingness to pay for everything. According to my source, he was working part-time, complaining constantly about the early hours and the demanding customers. Mom had been spotted at the grocery store, comparing prices and using coupons, something she'd always claimed was beneath her dignity back when I'd been handling the shopping. Dad, apparently, had aged years in the months since I'd left. The stress of managing bills and appointments, of being responsible for his own life again, had taken a visible toll. I felt nothing. That should have worried me, the absence of guilt or satisfaction. But sitting in my bright living room, listening to the sounds of people pursuing their passions around me, I realized nothing was exactly what they deserved from me. The final call came on a rainy Thursday evening. I was cooking dinner for one, actually cooking, not heating up whatever was cheapest, when my phone lit up with Mom's number. This time, I answered. "Angie." The relief in her voice was palpable. "Oh, thank God. We've been so worried. What do you want, Mom?" A pause. We need help. The property taxes are 6 months overdue, and Neil barely makes enough to cover groceries. Dad's medications alone are more than his social security check, and the water heater finally died last week. And we can't do this without you." Her voice cracked. "We were wrong, okay? We said some hurtful things, but we're family. Family helps each other." I watched rain streak down my window, distorting the lights of the coffee shop across the street where people were reading, writing, creating. The painter across the courtyard had moved her easel inside for the evening, and I could see her silhouette against her lit window, still working. Where was that philosophy when you charged $130 to my credit card for dinner I wasn't invited to share? That was different. "We were upset, Anne." "No," I said quietly. "That was exactly who you are. All of you. You took and took and took, and when I finally stopped giving, you couldn't even manage to pay a utility bill without me. Please." Mom was crying now. "We'll lose the house. Everything we've worked for." "Everything I worked for," I corrected. "Everything I paid for, everything I maintained, everything I sacrificed my own life to provide for people who never once said thank you. We're sorry." "No, you're desperate. There's a difference." I hung up and blocked all their numbers. 6 months later, I learned through the same mutual acquaintance that they'd sold the house. Apparently, the county had been threatening to sue for unpaid property taxes, and the maintenance costs had become overwhelming after the roof started leaking and the furnace died in the same month. The sale had covered the back taxes and given them enough for my parents to rent a small apartment across town. Neil had moved in with a girlfriend, a development that apparently shocked everyone who'd assumed he was as incapable of maintaining a relationship as he was a job. "They ask about you sometimes," the acquaintance said carefully. "I think they'd like to reconcile." I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, the one where I'd become a regular, where the barista knew my order and the owner had started displaying local art on the walls. The first novel in my trilogy had just received a starred review in Publishers Weekly, and my agent was already talking about movie rights for all the books. "That's nice," I said, and meant it the same way I'd mean it if someone told me about the weather in a city I'd never visit. Some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from the ashes and never look back. I finished my coffee, opened my laptop, and began writing the final chapter of the third book. Outside, the city hummed with the energy of people creating their own lives, and for the first time in years, I was one of them. Please like and subscribe for more great revenge stories and feel free to vent about family drama in the comments.